Consciousness Revealing Its Reality, Part 2. We made remarkable progress towards understanding biology, physics, the cosmology, quantum physics, artificial intelligence, and planning for time travel. But till now, we're not able to understand the same question: who we are, from where we came from, where do we reside inside our body, why do we die, and where do we go after death? Does some paranormal or ghost exist in this universe? Or, scientifically, we can say non-physical thing like consciousness, ghost, soul, spirit are also fundamental things which parallelly exist with materialism. More interestingly, why we are not able to understand our own existence. The story of consciousness is the most unsolved and mysterious thing for every human being. Before watching this film, please see its before episode, Consciousness Revealing Its Reality Part 1, for easy understanding. People believe we are souls which reside inside our individual brain and is controlled by God. And after death, our soul gets the prize, merged with God or punished by God as per our work, or again get birth in an endless cycle of birth and death. And if we are not able to success our will in living, then after death we become spirit, ghost, or zombie. Some religion believes there is an existence of non-physical thing between God and human. Who makes the communication between God and us? They are angels, puppets, or representative of God to help human beings and know our ultimate truth. And some are harmful to us, called demon, evil, and ghost. But is non-physical thing real? How science explains something as physical as the brain creates something as immaterial as your sense of self called consciousness? How do our conscious experiences arise? Materialism. It tells matter is the fundamental substance in nature, and all things, including mind and consciousness, are results of material interactions. And consciousness is biochemistry of the human brain and nervous system, without which it cannot exist. Let us understand brain medically. The adult human brain weighs on average about 1.2 to 1.4 kilograms or 2.6 to 3.1 pounds, which is about 2% of the total body weight, with a volume of around 1216 centimeter cubes in men and 1130 centimeter cube in women. When we see something, light meets the retina and the process of sight begins. Light passing through the cornea and the lens, which combine to produce a clear image of the visual world on a sheet of photoreceptors called the retina. The retina sends the information in the form of electrical signals via the optic nerve to other parts of the brain. Visual information from the retina is relayed through the lateral geniculate nucleus of the thalamus to the primary visual cortex located in the occipital lobe in the back of the brain. The primary visual cortex is densely packed with cells in many layers. In its middle layer, which receives messages from the lateral geniculate nucleus, although the visual processing mechanisms aren't yet completely understood. But recent findings from anatomical and physiological suggest that visual signals are fed into at least 3 separate processing systems. One system appears to process information mainly about shape, second mainly about color, and third about movement, location, and spatial organization. A part of this, brain also do other function. The brain is divided into main functional sections called lobes. These sections or brain lobes are called the frontal lobe, temporal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. Frontal lobe functions are speaking or expressive language, awareness of abilities and limitations, inhibition of behavior, and problem solving. Parietal lobe functions are sense of touch, spatial perception, differentiation or identification of size, shapes, and colors, visual perception. Brainstem functions: breathing, heart rate, sleep and wake cycles. Temporal lobe functions are memory, understanding language or receptive language, hearing. The cerebellum lobe functions are balance, coordination. Occipital lobe function is vision. But again, the same unsolved question. Doing all this thing, what a materialistic brain do, as called intelligent, a robot can do all of this. But where's I and you, the inner feeling of myself, yourself, or any human inside his or her body? Means if a doctor replaces each cell of my body with you simultaneously, will I be you or will you be me? What is consciousness and where does it reside? Because all this thing what brain does is intelligent, what a modern computer can also do. We cannot say a computer or any program like Alexa, Sophia Robot, or any advanced video game or Google Assistants as conscious because they are just programmed to do so. So how we can able to understand the difference between artificial intelligence and consciousness? Consciousness has 5 senses by which it takes input feedback and reacts as subjective experience, no previous program. Another important thing is we never see the reality what we see, but we see what mind or consciousness wants to show us. Let's take an example. The universe is colorless. But the color we perceive is just different wavelength of electromagnetic radiation. Our mind makes a false illusion about reality. The darkness we see is only our eye and brain makes the reality. But our universe is full with gamma rays, which made his journey from the Big Bang, and still it is existing in each corner of the universe. And other wavelength which is our eye and brain are not programmed to see. There is no smell which exists in this universe because chemical structure transferred to an illusion of smell. Our consciousness hides the actual reality during time of evolution for survival. Is consciousness emerged with birth of a human and out in death? Let us understand more deeply. We all have a systematic, similar, complex collection machine called body, which consists legs, hand, internal and external organ, and a brain. But fundamentally, we are not same, or we can say everybody have separate entity or separate consciousness. Means I have an inner feeling of myself, and you have your inner feeling, the free will, the pain, the emotion, love, the fear, the personality, the choice of color and smell. And if we'll study in micro level, we will find we are made of more than trillion cells. Each cell have their own complex internal organ, own brain, or control system like nucleus, powerhouse like mitochondria. Again, these trillion cells die and rebirth through cell division. If we keep account on our body, we see within a week our body completely changes with new cell collection. So if our body changed completely, then how our entity remains same? Again, we can say we are fundamentally same due to we are made of same cells by cell division. But at the same concept, our child are also made from our cell division only externally. So after 1,000 years, we are also same with only biological change. So someone will live after my death in my family, fundamentally me in a different name. But what about our consciousness? A subjective experience of individual? Let us understand about our individual life, what we all live in. As per passing of time or entropy of universe, we are constantly changing in mental level. When we take birth or in baby stage, we are different as per our brain memory, and our personality, our subjective experience also different as present. Even our continuity of subjective inner experience also not there. Therefore, we all cannot remember when we are baby. So we are constantly changing time to time as different person both physically and mentally. But we feel the continuous due to our past experience and memory. Suppose we have an accident or any reason we erase all the memory of our brain. Then we became a different person with the same biological existence and same brain. So, what is the subjective inner experience of I, we, or all individual? Let us do another experiment. Suppose we will transfer all the information of past experience, memory of a person after death to a computer, which our technology presently able to do, and put it inside a robot. Then, will that person subjectively experience the alive inside the computer or body? No. The new robot will be an identical to that dead person with personality, value, memory of past, but that dead person cannot live. Or we can say the robot cannot get a first-person inner experience, or it will be a philosophical zombie. Then again, the same question. Is consciousness something non-physical existence which till now we are not able to understand? Brain and heart doctors overall trying to understand the existence of consciousness in human body. When a patient taking general anesthesia for any operation, all the physical activity stops. As science advances, we're able to know that after a human death or cardiac arrest, the cells live for long hours, and internal organs are also not damaged immediately. So, in few cases, we are able to retrieve the person after death or clinical death. But from recent experiment, it is found that consciousness still exists a few minutes after a person clinical death, even when there is no blood supply to brain and no electrical pulse of neuron. If its heart started to work, then again the person became conscious and possessed a very interesting near-death experience, which confirmed that consciousness still exists in human brain after a person dead, maybe a few minutes, or it continues, which gives a challenge to materialistic believer about consciousness. And similar cases in a surgery. Doctor gives general anesthesia to make a person unconscious. The person loses its consciousness. What happens when we lose consciousness during anesthesia? The first successful surgery under anesthesia occurred in the 1840s. Since then, more than 170 years, despite millions of surgeries taking place each day, researchers still don't understand exactly which specific areas of the brain are responsible for transitioning into unconsciousness and back. While the development of anesthetic drugs is hailed and as one of the greatest discoveries, it leads us to ask one of the greatest philosophical questions that we're still trying to understand. How and why are we conscious, and what do general anesthesia do to produce unconsciousness? But one thing researchers understand that consciousness does not reside in any one part of the brain, such as the hippocampus and its association with memory. However, ongoing research is looking to find the specific areas of the brain affected by anesthetics, and how brains can go offline and subsequently come back online during a transition on and off anesthesia. Or we can say the facts surrounding how people enter and exit states of anesthesia is still a mystery. For the past 15 years, scientists looking into the undiscovered neurobiology for how the brain climbs out of the anesthetic reaction. Neuroscientists trying to figure out how exactly the human brain comes back to consciousness. Is there a standardized rebooting sequence like a computer with an operating system that reboots in one particular order? But recent studies are showing that emerging back into consciousness does not follow the same linear path, so it will become unconscious. Then, still I have the same question inside my mind: who am I? And who you are? Where do we reside inside our body? Is materialism sufficient to explain consciousness? Because we knew consciousness depends upon brain. But which part of brain? Or something separate material which isn't physical? Then which material it is made up of? Because in materialism, everything which exists in this universe must have a physical existence. Is non-physical thing like soul, spirit exist inside our body gives a subjective experience of ourself? If space-time, charges, law of nature, have no physical existence but are fundamental building blocks of universe, then consciousness also may be another fundamental of nature. Or is consciousness the only fundamental or ultimate reality by which we are observing fundamental forces, mathematical formula, and law of nature? Or consciousness is the only window to see the reality. So, if we will try to explain everything through a material world, then we will find lot of unsolved stuff. And on the other end, if we will try to understand the world with abstract material, it will be more explainable. But is consciousness not materialistic, but simply a computation of biological computer called brain, in which we quantify the thought at the same language that we use to process the information in our conscious mind? Let us understand little bit simply. The soul is pattern of neurons or atomic particle inside the brain. Soul or consciousness itself not a matter, but a pattern of brain atoms. Just like entropy, it directly not like a law of conservation of energy, but it controls the pattern of all material by which we experience the time. Is consciousness an imaginary thing? What quantum physics tells us about consciousness? Roger Penrose, British mathematician, mathematical physicist, philosopher of science, and Nobel laureate in physics. Roger asked a very interesting question. Is there a mental thing before a physical thing? If not, then how math became an integral part of universe creation? Or, more simply, how universe obeying mathematical laws with very high precision value from its creation time when there is no human consciousness existing. So, there is parallel 3 types of fundamental substance existing in this universe in very fundamental level. That is, normal physical existence like mass energy, non-physical existence like time, fundamental law, space, consciousness, or non-physical hidden reality, and mathematical existence, which is the base of our quantum reality. Roger gives another idea that consciousness is not a computation or not a physical process which described by computation. Roger found a non-computable source of consciousness in biology. That is microtubular. But why we are thinking about saying Roger Penrose and Stuart R. Hameroff developed a theory called orchestrated objective reduction. It suggests consciousness arises from quantum vibrations in protein polymers called microtubules inside the brain's neurons. Vibrations which interfere or collapse and resonate across scale control neuronal firings and generate consciousness, and connect ultimately to deeper order ripples in space-time geometry. Consciousness is more like music than computation. Stuart studied how anesthetics act in microtubules to erase consciousness and neurological disorders. He found the evidence that protein-based microtubular, a structural component of human cell, carry information spread in subatomic level. When a person dies, temporarily this quantum information is released from the microtubular to the universe. And it is possible that this quantum information exists outside the body called soul. A single cell also used in microtubular structure called cytoskeleton as information of memory and learning. So, consciousness is not a single entity, but complexity of reverse system. He found that time slowed down when brain process information. The information of brain can travel backward of time, so we preserve memory. If consciousness is fundamental, there must be a negative fundamental must exist, which may be called negative consciousness as ghost, demon, or zombie. Or universe have a totally separate reality that we are a simulation. In upcoming episodes, I'll come with a new film about our existence with simulation. Till now, bye.